In this video, we will talk about what could have been in the city of Baltimore. After the bye, the team gets some good news for some players returning to practice. How one of the Ravens' most prominent players got slandered on his day off.
For real? I thought you had a day off yesterday.
And really, truly, what is going on with this team?
What the hell's going on out here?
But first, let's get it. So finally, after a long weekend with no Baltimore Ravens football, we enter week 8 of the season. And I'm going to tell you right now, this weekend was unbearable. I was losing my mind knowing that the Ravens were not playing this weekend, and I also had to get some frustration out of my system, so I went to the gun range and popped a few. And if you can tell, I had someone's picture in mind when I was hitting that target. But in all seriousness, as the Ravens sit 1-5 on the season, and we have the bye behind us, the team can focus on the next 11 games. There can be a singular focus on what is left for the rest of the season. We can't do anything about what happened beforehand. We can only look forward. But before we can move forward, we kind of have to pinpoint where some of these things went wrong. How could a roster that has been touted to be one of the best in the NFL, how can this collection of talent fail so miserably? How can this team play well below expectations? And if you ask me, it all starts with the head coach. If this roster is as talented as they say that they are, if we have so many guys that can do their jobs extremely well, who do we put this blame on? Now, I know that we cannot truly blame just one individual. That would be reckless. But a lot of things start at the top of the pyramid and rolls downhill. And for me, it all boils down to accountability. Accountability from the man that is supposed to be the leader of men. Accountability from the guy who sets the tone for the team as they make their way to the field. Accountability from the guy who puts the people on the field, hires the individuals to coach those players, and prepares them week in and week out. Now, there was some report of 25 unnamed sources that the Ravens talked to trying to pinpoint what the problem was. And it's like you found 25 unbiased people to tell you what was really going on with this organization? I think not. Just like a lot of Ravens fans want to hear what they want to hear. They don't want the truth. They want what could be, what's possible, what we think may happen. Instead of living in the reality that as of right now, the Baltimore Ravens are in the basement of the AFC North. If you would have told me the Ravens would have been in last place after 7 weeks of the season, I would have had you committed. But lo and behold, here we are. And those 25 unnamed sources, supposedly or whatever, got to the root of the problem, and it had to do with play calling, efficiency, just innovativeness of the offense, which to me had me spit out my drink. And this is where I see the problem with this Baltimore Ravens team. Somehow, some way, after weeks of this defense giving up 30+ points per game, the blame has shifted to our offensive coordinator. Now, somebody please, I don't claim to be a very smart man. I have some intelligence, but I don't claim to be the smartest man. But at a point in time, before your superstar quarterback goes out, your team's giving up 30-something plus points a game, but your offense is scoring 30+ something points per game. Who's not doing their job? So how we shifted the focus directly to Todd Monken. Yes, he has had some bad games. He has not been at his best for most of this season, especially with the stars going down. He just had no plan without Lamar, which this team has been constructed to play with Lamar. This team has not been constructed to win without him. So for Todd Monken, to me, he doesn't get all the blame, but he does get some of the blame for the creativeness. But it is also the way that the offensive coordinator is structured within the Baltimore Ravens system, and we run a variation of the Baltimore Ravens offense. But the craziest part to me was, with all this criticism that he's getting, if we think back a few years ago, Greg Roman didn't get this vitriol. There was no negative mentions of what Greg Roman was doing wrong. This passing game was horrible under Greg Roman, but you never heard John Harbaugh throw him under the bus. Now, Zach Orr, on the other hand, he is struggling. I read somewhere today on one of these publications, I can't remember which one, but I know I just used them to laugh because some of the articles that they put out and they talk about, some of Zach Orr's dominance. When has Zach Orr been dominant as a play caller in his almost 1.5 years as a defensive coordinator? It hasn't happened yet. But somehow he is shielded from everything that's going on in this organization. This team had to go out and hire 2 former defensive coordinators to give him help. I don't see you going out here getting 2 offensive coordinators or 2 former head coaches to help Todd Monken out. But yet and still, this narrative has shifted. So for me, John Harbaugh, you are the problem. Look at what you're doing. Look how you are, for all intents and purposes, saving yourself by trying to throw Todd Monken under the bus. Because technically he is a Raven, but he's not a Raven like Zach Orr is a Raven. Zach Orr is ingrained in this organization. Todd Monken is just a piece to help John Harbaugh get through whatever season he wants to get through. And then John Harbaugh, if he remains the head coach, will move on to somebody else like he has throughout his 18-year career. But this head coach, he needs to get his staff intact. Regardless if you keep somebody, if you fire someone, you need to get things intact because I solely blame this on you. EDC has not constructed the roster that people said he has. There are so many flaws across this roster. I will give you that. But you as the head coach need to work with what you have. And other coaches out here are doing that. This is why I had to get out this weekend because I watched other teams play football and play good football. And some even played great football. And not all of these teams were healthy. I remember watching when the 49ers were playing. And you want to talk about not being healthy? Their starting quarterback is out. One of their wide receivers was out, and the other wide receiver was put on IR before the season started. Now, defensively, you lost the best linebacker in the game, and you possibly lost a top 5 defensive end, defensive tackle, whatever you want to label Nick Bosa. But he is one of the better pass rushers in the game. So 2 of the best pieces you have on defense are done for. Yet and still, you went out there and took on an Atlanta Falcons team. And I do believe their center got hurt sometime during that game. And you won. This was an Atlanta Falcons team that beat the Minnesota Vikings. They beat the Washington Commanders and the previously unbeaten Buffalo Bills. They took this injured team without a lot of their stars. And some of the stars that they had were ailing and dominated defensively. Yes, they had 2 sacks, a forced fumble. I believe some of the sacks were called back because of penalties, but they put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. So how can these teams that lose their bestest of players, granted, we've lost some players too, but we didn't lose our 2 best players and yet still be dominant? We can't even be passable. And that starts with the head coaches. And it starts with the defensive coordinators that you bring in. And it starts with the people you surround them with. Yes, Kyle Shanahan wasn't happy with his defensive coordinator at one time. He fired him and moved on to somebody else. Then Robert Saleh got fired. He brought him back in as a consultant. That's how you do things. You bring back successful guys. You bring guys in with a pedigree that have done things. And yes, Chuck Pagano has done some things in this league, but his time is gone. Dean Pease has done nothing. In pros and college, they call him Swiss Peas for a reason. And it all starts with the head coach and the leadership. To me, Kyle Shanahan is not the best head coach in the NFL, but he makes things work with what he has. Us, the first sign of trouble is, well, all of these injuries, seasons down the drain, give him another year. Let's see what he can do with a fully healthy team. We've seen what John Harbaugh can do with a fully healthy team for 18 years. Well, maybe 16 out of the 18. But over the last 3, we've been relatively healthy and shat the bed each and every time. But more importantly, I need to see if John Harbaugh in the year of our Lord 2025, is this man still a liar? Because he lies to you. He lies to us all the time. He lied to us about playing 2 quarterbacks against the Houston Texans. Why? What was the point? Like, yo, that wasn't your plan. You may have thought about it, but that wasn't your plan. Things worked out the way that they worked out. You lied all season about, we're going to look into and make improvements with the offensive line, but yet and still, you tried out the same guys that struggle each and every week. And now I know because Andrew Roy, he's had a decent week, 1 game, they're going to elevate that because even today, they're still talking about, look at the best PFF rate, not the whole team. 1 game. He had a solid game. But we're supposed to believe he's turned the corner. If we do make it to the playoffs, that he and Faalele are going to be marketably better. I don't think so. But yet and still, we will find out come Sunday at 1 p.m. what this offensive line looks like. If we roll out with the same starting five at offensive line, that tells me everything that I need to know about this head coach that I don't already know. And I pretty much know a lot about him because I've watched him and I've studied him and I've listened to him and I've watched him dismantle this team full of dogs and bring in a bunch of patsies that pacify his ego. I've seen him squander chance after chance with one of the better rosters in the NFL. And if this season isn't evidence enough, you will never believe. And one thing that Ravens fans may never believe is the fact that we let one go. I saw somebody say today that we were like Washington and had our own Sean McVay in waiting. Actually, Washington had Matt LaFleur, Sean McVay. Washington had a plethora of talent that went on to become head coaches. And for once in our existence, outside of the Gary Kubiak year and a couple others, there's a couple others that were decent, but none like a Sean McVay. But we had Mike Macdonald in-house 2 seasons ago. And I want to be the first to apologize because I used to call Mike Macdonald the grad student because his first year was rough. And his second year, by golly, he got his degrees, many of them, and mastered this Ravens defense. Now, a lot of people thought that he was going to get an opportunity to be a head coach, which he did. But many Ravens fans thought that we should have gave him a contract, kind of like we did Eric DeCosta, and said, listen, I know he's the coach right now, but we got a plan for you to be next in line. Or we should have just fired John Harbaugh outright and promoted Mike Macdonald. We let a real one out the door. And Mike Macdonald is over there in Seattle killing it. Now, granted, he's got a GM that's had some stellar drafts. But even with those drafts, they have had a lot of injuries. Even this season, some of their star defensive players have been injured, but Mike Macdonald has righted the ship. When you have great coaching, when you have great leadership, you can accomplish a lot of things. And right now, the Seattle Seahawks defense is 6th in the league in points against, 10th in yards. His team sits at 5-2, and you can see, if you watch Twitter or you look at certain clips, you can see that he is actually unified with his team, that his team will follow him. They listen to him, and he told him, like, this ain't me. This is you guys out there performing the way that I knew that you could. Having his teams back when they didn't do well, he said it. They won the game, and he said, hey, y'all guys won in spite of me. Like, I didn't do what I was supposed to do. Accountability. That's what a head coach is supposed to be about, but we get none of that with John Harbaugh. All we get is we. They, him, we. You never hear that man say, I. And until that happens, this team is going to be stuck in a rut. We are going to be the laughingstock of the NFL. Now, can we go and win the next 10 games, 11 games, and make the playoffs? We most certainly can. But with this leadership, is it going to happen? And for that to happen, the Ravens have to do something. They have to make some kind of a change, whether it be bringing people off the bench, getting guys off the practice squad, or making a trade. The Ravens have to do something to improve this roster. Now, the trade deadline is November the 4th. So the Ravens have a few weeks to decide everything that they're going to do. Now, for me, I expect them to be buyers, get some people. If Lamar's healthy, try to make a run. But one thing that I am not happy about is the reports that came out about EDC looking for defense. He's talked to the Miami Dolphins, the New York Jets, the New York Giants, and the Tennessee Titans about trading for some potential pass rushers, some defensive help. And to me, it is fucking insane. You've allocated all of these resources to defense every season. You're drafting defense. You're bringing in free agents. You're trading for defense. And now here we are sitting at 1-5 with our offensive line in shambles. And you're out here looking for more defensive help. This is how I know that this team is lost. We are doomed as a franchise. Because if anything serious ever happens to Lamar Jackson, it's a wash. We are still not looking to protect our quarterback, who is only hurt because he got beat up for the first 4 weeks of the season. But yet and still, we need some more defensive help. For what? For a defensive coordinator that doesn't know how to put players in the right position? Like, make some fucking sense. I'm sorry. Let me get myself together. Because I'm tired of the same old. I'm tired of us doing the same thing. And it's crazy that even the most staunch supporters from back in the day that's like, y'all crazy. Defense wins championships. We need defense. Even they are starting to see, how many defenders are you going to need to be the worst rated defense in the NFL? How many defenders are you going to need to bring in for us to fail each and every week in the fourth quarter and let teams come back? How many defenders are we going to need before we finally see that Lamar Jackson being protected and given weapons, outscoring opponents is the way that we have to win with this poorly constructed roster? Now, granted, Roquan Smith is supposed to be coming back. Marlon Humphrey is supposed to be healthy. Hard R. Ricard is supposed to make his season debut. Yes, the Ravens are supposed to be getting back a lot of players that have been out after this bye week. But Lamar Jackson did not practice Monday. Now, Monday was supposed to be a bonus practice, so it wasn't too alarming that he was not there. But in my opinion, he's not coming back this week. I keep telling y'all, hamstrings are a difficult thing to process. It's not like, oh, 3 weeks you good, 4 weeks you good. You never know how bad the strain is, and just one wrong move and you're out for 8 more weeks. And we don't want that. We can't afford for Lamar to come back versus the Bears and then get hurt and be out for 4 or 5 more weeks. So I think Lamar sits out this game. He gets an extra 4 days of rest because we play Thursday night versus the Dolphins in week 9. And we have to fend for ourselves. But this roster, the way that it's constructed, we can't stop anybody. And with Tyler Huntley and Cooper Rush, we can't score double digits. It just is what it is. It is how our GM constructed this roster. When you take a GM who has 1,000 draft picks and has hit on 4, and a head coach that doesn't know how to coach, and that leads you to a 1-5 season. That leads you to sitting behind the Cleveland Browns in the division. In a year when I swore we were going to win a 3rd straight North title, we are last in the division behind the Cleveland Browns, starting a 3rd round rookie quarterback. But it is what it is. It is what it is. Have faith. Supposedly, John Harbaugh is getting it together. EDC's making moves to bring in more defense. So it's much to do about nothing. We're going about the same path, the same way, at the same speed. But we're expecting to get there faster. But it's okay. It is what it is what it is. I'm sorry. It is what it is. It's just been a lot of stuff going on this week in football with this team. Just hearing people just say certain things. I understand. Everybody has an opinion, and I'm never here to tell anybody that their opinion is wrong. But some of the things that I'm hearing, some of the things that people are saying, it's kind of like, where does this derive from? And I know where some of it comes from. And I know what people, some of these things, which way they came. Pause. But some things just, to me, just, when you say it, do you even think to yourself, that was kind of stupid? And the one thing that they were talking about was, do they think that Lamar Jackson was actually going to come back this week and play? And somebody made a comment and said, no, Lamar's not coming back this week because he has a guaranteed contract, and that's not what players do anymore. I miss Joe Flacco because Joe would play hurt. I get it. Everybody has their favorite. Everybody has their preference. And me, I'm a Joe Flacco fan. Jasmine, she loves Joe Flacco to death. Growing up, just here, Joe Flacco is a hero in our household. But to compare with what Joe Flacco had to do for this Baltimore Ravens team compared to what Lamar Jackson has to do for this Ravens team is absurd. And I will never tell somebody that they don't know football. But if you look at both sides of it, and Joe, for me, was better than a lot of people give him credit for. And Joe had to do a lot of things sometimes with a lot less. But Lamar has to carry an offense. There were times where Joe had a running back, Joe had a wide receiver, Joe had an offensive line. But Lamar, there have been times in his career where he's had none of that. He's had something slight on offense, but he has to carry a team. He has to outscore opponents. He has to play keep away and keep opposing offenses off the field because he knows that his defense can't get it done. Yes, Joe has done some miraculous things. He's won a Super Bowl for the Baltimore Ravens. All hail Joe, that's my guy. But to compare what one has to do compared to another, Joe has never had to be the leading passer and the leading rusher for the Baltimore Ravens. He's never come close to that. He's never had to do that. He's never been asked. He's been asked to accentuate what we have and play to his strengths. We asked Lamar to carry this team on his back. So to say that, oh, Lamar's not coming back to play because he got guaranteed money is asinine to me. And it's a little bit racist because I guarantee you I know who said it. He ain't coming back. So let's say Lamar comes back versus the Bears and gets hurt again. And I guarantee you'll be the same person saying, that was stupid. You knew you weren't ready. I don't understand for the life of me a fan base that wants to slander their starting quarterback so badly as the Baltimore Ravens fans do. They say that we negative over here. You should hear some of y'all's comments about Lamar Jackson. And I know it's not about race for a lot of us around here, but if you read into these comments, you'll see how it goes. So it's crazy to me that you are comparing the two and you're questioning another man's integrity about playing a game because he got guaranteed money. But I guess you forgot when Joe Flacco got a new deal, he got a lot of guaranteed money. Then when he redid his deal the second time, he got a lot of guaranteed money. Guarantee you didn't say that about him when that happened. But it is what it is. And losing brings about a lot of things. Losing brings about a lot of ugliness from inside of people that you normally wouldn't see. And for a team that was predicted to win the Super Bowl, for a team that was predicted to dominate this league, to be almost the New York Jets, it hurts some people and they need somebody to blame. And they, for some reason, and some reasons that we know, don't want to blame the head coach. They don't want to blame the general manager. So who do you blame? Lamar Jackson. You're a fan of the Baltimore Ravens. We're 1-5, and y'all are talking about Lamar Jackson's playoff failures. But it is what it is. You fan the way that you fan. I'll fan the way that I fan. But I know this for certain. Lamar Jackson is a real one, and he doesn't quit on his team. Unlike the head coach who quit on this team years ago and decided that he's going to coach for ego rather than to coach for wins. So the next time you feel like criticizing somebody about not playing hurt, look at your head coach and when his ego is hurt, how he coaches. Now go run tell that.